The city square was bustling with activity. People hurried along the sidewalks, lost in their own worlds, each one rushing to their next appointment or task. The sounds of honking cars, chattering pedestrians, and the occasional dog barking filled the air. But amidst the busy scene, there was one small, quiet corner where time seemed to slow down. This was where Lucas, a 12-year-old Christian boy with Down syndrome, had set up his spot. With a bright smile on his face, Lucas stood on the sidewalk, holding a small, worn guitar. The sun shone down on him, casting a warm glow on his face, as if the world itself was supporting him in his simple mission. He wasn't performing for fame or attention. He was there to share something deeply personal, a song of hope, love, and faith. His mother had taught him these values, and every Sunday, they would sing together at church. Now, Lucas wanted to bring that same joy to the people passing by in the square. As he settled onto a bench near the park entrance, Lucas took a deep breath and closed his eyes for a moment, as if he was preparing his heart to sing. The streets were full of people moving fast, not paying attention to the boy with the guitar. He wasn't sure who would stop or even notice him, but that didn't matter. He was there because he believed his music could make someone's day just a little bit better. He strummed the first chord, and the soft melody drifted through the air. The hustle and bustle of the city around him continued, but something in the air seemed to shift. Even in the midst of all the noise, there was something special about Lucas. His presence contrasted with the rushing world around him. He was still and calm, his eyes full of joy and purpose. People walked past, too busy to notice, but a few did glance at him, intrigued by the music. One by one, they stopped to listen. As Lucas strummed the strings of his guitar, his voice began to rise above the noise of the city. He sang a hymn, a song of hope and faith, one his mother had taught him from the time he was little. His voice was soft but full of sincerity, the kind of voice that pulled at your heartstrings. The words of the song, simple yet profound, began to fill the air. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound! His voice wasn't perfect, but it didn't matter. There was a raw, heartfelt beauty in it. His voice carried with the strength of someone who had known the power of grace, of love, of faith. Each note seemed to float through the air, drawing people in slowly. At first, the people walking by didn't pay much attention. They were too focused on their own lives. But as the song continued, something about it made them pause. A few started to look around, trying to figure out where the beautiful sound was coming from. Some slowed their pace, tilting their heads to listen more closely. Others, curious, stopped to stand nearby. A woman passing by smiled, touched by the familiar hymn. She pulled out her phone, not to record, but simply to savor the moment. Another man, who had been rushing to a meeting, stopped and leaned against a tree, closing his eyes to listen. The sounds of the city seemed to fade into the background, and for just a moment, all that existed was Lucas's voice and his music. As Lucas sang, he wasn't just playing a song. He was sharing a piece of his soul, letting the music flow from his heart. His eyes remained closed as he sang, lost in the joy of the melody. He didn't need anyone's approval. He was singing for the sheer love of it. The crowd continued to grow as more people stopped to listen. Some were smiling, some were nodding their heads along with the rhythm, and some were even wiping away a tear. The music wasn't just a distraction, it was a comfort. It was an escape from the stress of the world for those who needed it most. And Lucas, with his simple song, had managed to touch their hearts in a way that words alone couldn't. A young couple, both exhausted from a long day at work, sat on a nearby bench, letting the music wash over them. The woman turned to her partner with a smile and whispered, "This is exactly what I needed today." In that moment, Lucas wasn't just a boy with Down syndrome playing a guitar. He was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, beauty and love could shine through. And for those who had the chance to hear him, that simple moment of music became something they would carry with them. The square, once filled with the sounds of a busy city, had quieted. Lucas's hymn had captured the attention of a growing crowd, turning a seemingly ordinary street corner into a place of peace and reflection. Just as the music filled the air, a figure appeared from the far side of the square. It was none other than Donald Trump, who had been in town for a business event. Trump walked briskly through the square, his attention initially focused on the business discussions ahead of him. He was deep in thought, his mind racing with the tasks of the day. But then something stopped him in his tracks. The sound of Lucas's voice reached him. At first, it was just a soft murmur in the background, but as the melody grew, it pulled him in. He slowed his pace, his attention shifting away from the meetings and decisions that awaited him. He turned his head slightly, trying to locate the source of the voice. When he finally spotted Lucas, standing there with his guitar, singing with all his heart, something in the moment changed. Trump stood still, absorbing the power of the music. The sincerity in Lucas's voice was undeniable, and the simple beauty of the song moved him. His usual sharp, businesslike demeanor softened, and for the first time that day, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. There was no crowd of reporters, no press conferences or negotiations, just a young boy, sharing his gift with the world. As Trump continued to watch, his expression softened. The intensity of the performance wasn't lost on him. The boy's voice carried so much emotion, so much heart, that it seemed to speak directly to something deep inside him. It was the kind of moment that made the busy world stop. A moment where time stood still. Trump wasn't sure what had drawn him to the boy in the first place, but now that he was standing there, he couldn't tear his eyes away. Lucas's performance had made an impact on him in a way that nothing else that day had. For the first time, he felt truly moved by something simple, something pure. The crowd around him continued to listen, but Trump stood there in silent admiration, appreciating the beauty of the moment. As Lucas strummed the final chords of his song, the crowd around him began to clap, their applause a mixture of appreciation and awe. Lucas smiled shyly, looking down at his guitar, his face flushing with humility. He hadn't expected so much attention, but he was happy to have shared his music with others. Just as the applause began to die down, a voice broke through the crowd. It was strong, but warm, filled with admiration. "Son, that was incredible." Lucas looked up, surprised, and saw none other than Donald Trump standing in front of him, a genuine smile on his face. The crowd went quiet in anticipation, eager to see what would happen next. Trump bent down to Lucas's level, kneeling so they were eye to eye. His voice was full of sincerity as he spoke. "You've got a real gift, son. Your voice is amazing." There was no hint of his usual political bravado. In that moment, he seemed like just another person, deeply moved by the power of Lucas's performance. Lucas blinked, a little taken aback by the attention. He wasn't used to someone like Donald Trump speaking to him with such warmth. After a brief pause, he smiled shyly and looked at the ground, his hands still resting gently on his guitar. "Thank you, sir. God gave me the gift of music," he said softly. Trump's eyes softened as he listened to Lucas's response. The boy's humility and innocence left a lasting impression on him. Here was a child who had every reason to be proud, yet he chose to speak with grace and gratitude. Trump was struck by the boy's faith, something so pure and unguarded. It was rare to encounter such sincerity, especially in a world that often seemed full of noise and competition. The crowd watched quietly, sensing that something special was happening between the two. It wasn't just about a businessman meeting a young performer. It was about the connection between two people from very different worlds, brought together by something as simple and beautiful as music. "I'll tell you what, Lucas," Trump continued, his tone warm and genuine. "Keep singing. Keep sharing your gift with the world. It's a rare thing to find someone who can bring that kind of joy to others." Lucas's face lit up, his smile growing wider at Trump's words. "I will, sir. I promise." The crowd, which had been silent up until now, erupted into applause once more. But this time, the applause wasn't just for Lucas's performance. It was for the moment of kindness and connection that had unfolded right before them. A moment that reminded everyone of the power of music, faith, and the ability to touch the hearts of others, no matter who they were. As Trump straightened up and began to walk away, he turned back one last time to give Lucas a nod of approval. "You've got something special, kid," he said. And with that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving Lucas standing there with a heart full of gratitude and a new sense of hope for the future. In that brief, unexpected exchange, both Lucas and Donald Trump had shared a moment that transcended their differences. It was a reminder of the power of music, kindness, and how even the smallest moments can change someone's life forever. As the crowd continued to buzz with excitement, Trump stood there for a moment, watching Lucas, who was still basking in the applause from his impromptu performance. The emotional weight of the encounter hung in the air, but for Trump, it was more than just a moment of admiration, it was a call to action. He had been moved by Lucas's pure talent and the sincerity of his music, something he hadn't expected to find on this ordinary city street. Without hesitation, Trump reached into his pocket and pulled out a thick, well-worn wallet. He carefully removed a generous stack of bills and walked back towards Lucas, who was still holding his guitar with an expression of quiet joy. "You keep doing what you're doing, Lucas," Trump said, his voice steady and sincere. "I want to help you continue sharing your gift with the world." Lucas looked up at him, his eyes wide in disbelief. He couldn't quite process what was happening. It wasn't every day that someone like Donald Trump stopped to speak to him, let alone offer such an act of kindness. For a moment, all he could do was blink, trying to make sense of the situation. "Thank you, Mr. Trump," Lucas said, his voice full of emotion. "That's very kind of you." He had never imagined that someone with so much wealth and fame would take the time to notice him, let alone support him in such a meaningful way. His hands trembled slightly as he reached out to accept the donation, his heart swelling with gratitude. The small street corner, once just a place for passerby to go about their day, had become the stage for an unforgettable moment of kindness. Around them, the crowd watched, some with their phones still raised to capture the moment, others simply standing in awe of what was unfolding. The usual hustle of the city felt distant now, replaced by something far more meaningful, a connection between two people from different worlds. A businessman, who could have easily ignored the boy's performance, had instead chosen to make a difference in his life. For many, it was an unexpected act of generosity from someone known for his public persona, and it left everyone with a sense of hope and inspiration. As the scene began to settle, Lucas clutched the money in his hands, still overwhelmed. He wasn't sure what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, it seemed brighter than ever before. The story of Lucas and Donald Trump's unexpected meeting quickly spread through the city, and before long, it went viral on social media. Videos of Lucas's heartfelt performance, paired with Trump's generous donation, captured the attention of thousands of people. News outlets picked up the story, and the internet buzzed with discussions about the unlikely encounter. People from all walks of life shared the video, moved by the simple yet powerful moment of kindness between the two. For many, the story was a reminder that no matter how different someone's background or life might be, kindness could still find a way to bridge the gap. It was a moment where a young boy with a dream of sharing his music with the world had the chance to see that dream grow, thanks to the support of someone who didn't have to help but chose to. It sparked conversations about generosity, the power of music, and the importance of helping others, regardless of their circumstances. Lucas's family, once struggling to make ends meet, found themselves in a position they had never imagined. With Trump's donation, they were able to purchase better instruments for Lucas and enroll him in music lessons, something they had always hoped for but couldn't afford. Lucas's dreams of performing for larger audiences and sharing his gift with the world seemed more attainable now. His parents, proud of their son's talent and the generosity they had witnessed, knew that this was a turning point in their lives. As the weeks passed, Lucas's reputation grew. He was invited to perform at local events, and his story inspired countless others. People reached out to him, offering support, encouragement, and opportunities that he could never have imagined. But through it all, Lucas remained grounded. He never lost sight of what had brought him joy in the first place: his love for music and his deep faith. In the end, the story of Lucas and Donald Trump was more than just an extraordinary encounter. It was a reminder of how a single act of kindness can create a ripple effect that touches far more lives than one might ever expect. It was proof that sometimes, the most unexpected moments can lead to life-changing outcomes. The story closes with Lucas and his family walking home from a local music lesson, their hearts full of hope. They passed the same street corner where it all began, now quiet again, but with a new sense of meaning. Lucas's guitar case is filled with the new instruments they had purchased, and his family walks alongside him, smiling and laughing. The world may be full of challenges, but in this moment, they knew that kindness and hope could make all the difference. It was a wholesome reminder that even in the busiest of places, moments of pure joy, generosity, and love could arise, changing lives and inspiring others along the way.